You've seen this person. Everyone in the group is talking over each other, debating, arguing, trying to sound impressive. And there's this one person just sitting there, quiet, nodding slowly, not saying much. And you probably thought, oh, they don't get it. But here's the contradiction nobody warns you about. That quiet person, they noticed three things about you that you haven't noticed about yourself yet. Let that land. We've spent years labeling people with low IQ as slow, behind, confused, like they're missing something the rest of us have. But what if the label is the problem, not the person? What if we've been measuring the wrong thing this whole time and calling it intelligence? This video isn't here to defend anyone. It's here to show you something that'll make you question how you've been reading people, including yourself. Think about someone in your life right now. Maybe a cousin who never did well in school, but somehow always had work, always had people around them, always figured things out. And somewhere along the way, you or someone near you quietly wrote them off. Not the sharpest. Now think about yourself for a second. Have you ever been in a room where everyone seemed to get something faster than you? Where the joke landed for everyone else before it landed for you? Where you stayed quiet, not because you had nothing to say, but because you weren't sure your words would come out right? That feeling isn't stupidity. But we've been told it is for a long time. And that story, the one about what intelligence looks like, sounds like, and who has it, that's exactly what needs a second look. Here's how it usually starts. You're maybe 8 or 9 years old. A teacher hands back a test. Your number is lower than the kid next to you. Someone reacts, a look, a comment, a quiet rearrangement of who sits where. And just like that, a story begins. The kid who struggled with reading starts sitting at the back, not because anyone forced them, but because a long time ago, someone's reaction made them feel like that's where they belonged. And they carry that seat with them, building slowly into every classroom, every meeting room, every conversation for the rest of their life. But here's what that story leaves out. People with lower IQ scores aren't failing at intelligence. They're often succeeding at things the tests never had a column for. Loyalty, patience, knowing when a situation is about to fall apart before anyone else does. Psychologists call these social-emotional skills, and research shows they often predict life success more accurately than test scores. Think of IQ like one tool in a toolbox. Useful, but useless if it's the only one you're allowed to use. Dry ride delivery. Here's a pattern worth paying attention to. People who score lower on IQ tests tend to make decisions faster. They feel something and they move. No 3-day internal debate, no spiral of, but what if? Light and almost laughing at the familiarity. You might call that impulsive, neutral, giving the skeptic their moment. But watch what happens over time. They try more things. They fail faster, recover faster, and move on without much drama. Meanwhile, the smart person is still building a spreadsheet about a decision they made 2 weeks ago. Let the irony land. There's something quietly powerful about a mind that doesn't trap itself. Psychologists call this a lower need for cognitive closure, basically less mental resistance to uncertainty. Think of it like 2 different phones. One runs 10 background apps constantly, checking every variable, tired. The other just works, picks up, responds, gets things done. The first one isn't more capable, it's just using more battery. This one is going to sit with you for a while. Think about the most analytical person you know, the one who sees every angle, plans every outcome, thinks 3 steps ahead. Impressive, right? Now ask them how they sleep at night. Research shows that people with higher measured IQ report significantly more anxiety, more overthinking, and more dissatisfaction with their own lives. Not because their life is harder, but because their mind won't stop running simulations of everything that could go wrong. Every decision becomes a calculation. Every conversation gets replayed. Every silence gets analyzed. And here's where it gets interesting. The person you've been calling slow, studies found they report higher day-to-day happiness, stronger friendships, and less chronic stress, not because life handed them more, but because their mind isn't always working against them. There's a man who fixes bikes outside a small market. No degree, probably never tested well. But he knows every customer's name, remembers their kids, laughs more before noon than almost anyone does all week. You've walked past someone like him, maybe smiled politely, maybe felt a little sorry for him. But who's actually winning that comparison? Here's the quiet truth nobody says out loud. The IQ test was built for a specific purpose, sorting people into specific roles during a specific era. It measures reading, pattern recognition, logical sequencing. That's it. That's the whole list. It was never designed to measure courage, or creativity, or the ability to walk into a room full of strangers and make every single one of them feel comfortable within 5 minutes. But somewhere along the way, we took that one narrow tool, emphasis on one, and used it to measure a person's entire worth. Imagine judging a fish by its ability to climb a tree, watching it struggle, shaking your head, writing below average in the report. That's what we've been doing. Psychologists call this the problem of construct validity. Basically, the test only measures what the test was built to measure, nothing more. The quiet person sitting at the back of the room, still watching, still noticing, still reading every face in the space, they've been operating on a kind of intelligence the chart simply doesn't have a column for. And here's what's interesting. They figured that out long before we did. This part is for you. If you've ever taken longer to understand something and felt embarrassed about it, if someone in your life, a teacher, a parent, or classmate, made you feel like your way of thinking wasn't the right way, if you've ever sat in silence in a room full of people and wondered why everyone else seemed so comfortable and you didn't, you weren't broken. The real reason you felt firsthand, you were just being measured by a ruler that wasn't built for you. The people who hold a room together without saying much, that's a skill. It's simple. Certain. The ones who remember small details about people, who show up quietly and consistently, who make hard situations feel less heavy, that's intelligence. It just doesn't come with a certificate. You're not strange for thinking the way you think. Your mind simply works differently, and a difference is not the same as less. Here's the part worth holding on to. The world needs the person who remembers your name just as much as it needs the person who can solve equations in their head. Both matter, but we only build trophies for one of them. That changes the moment you stop accepting someone else's measurement of your mind. Remember where we started. That quiet person in the group. Everyone's talking, debating, performing, and them just sitting there, watching, noticing, saying nothing. You saw them one way at the beginning of this video. What do you see now? Because nothing about them changed. The only thing that shifted was a frame. And that's the entire point. Intelligence was never one thing. It was never one number, one test, one kind of quiet, or one kind of loud. We just got so comfortable with one measuring stick that we forgot there were other ways to measure. So the next time you're in a room and someone goes quiet, don't fill that silence with an assumption. Don't write the story before you've actually looked. Just wait. Because the person who sees the most clearly is rarely the loudest one in the room. And if this made you look at someone or yourself a little differently today, the next video might show you something even deeper about the way your mind actually works.